I wasn't supposed to become a bus driver. That sounds dramatic, but I mean it literally. I had never pictured myself doing it, never grew up wanting to drive city routes. I never had one of those childhood moments where I sat in the front seat of a bus and thought, this is my destiny. I was 32, recently divorced, behind on rent, and 1 month away from having my car repossessed. The only destiny I was thinking about was whether I'd be sleeping in my apartment next month or in that car. So when I saw an ad online that said, night route driver needed, immediate hire, no experience needed, and CDL training included, I clicked it before I finished reading. The company was called Morrow Transit Services. No website worth mentioning, just a plain page with a logo that looked like it had been designed on Microsoft Word. The pay was suspiciously high. Benefits kicked in immediately. Signing bonus after 30 days. It sounded fake. But fake jobs usually ask you to buy gift cards or send your social security number to a guy named Kevin with 14 spelling errors in his email signatures. This one asked me to come in person. The depot was on the edge of town in an industrial area where everything smelled like wet concrete and diesel. The building looked older than it should have been. The windows were dark, even in the middle of the day. And the sign out front had letters missing, so it just said Morrow Trans T. Inside, the office was almost empty. No receptionist, no waiting area. Just a desk and an old man in a gray uniform reading a newspaper like it was still 1987. He didn't look up when I walked in. "You here for Route 9?" he asked. I said I was here about the job posting. That's what I asked. I should have left then, but desperation has a way of making weird things seem normal. He handed me a clipboard with one sheet of paper on it. No application, no tax forms. Just a typed page titled, Employee Acknowledgement of Route Conditions. Below that was a line for my signature. I asked if there was more to it. He said, "You can read the rules after." I laughed a little because I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. I signed the paper. He stood up, folded his newspaper neatly, and said, "Good. Bus leaves at 11:30 tonight. Bay C." That was my interview. At 11:15 p.m., I was back. The depot looked worse at night. The lot stretched into darkness beyond the floodlights. Rows of parked buses sitting still like sleeping animals. Bay C had exactly one bus in it. It was older than the others. Long, boxy, painted white with no route number displayed. No city logo. Just a small black number stenciled near the door. Number 9. The old man was waiting beside it. He handed me a metal thermos, a ring of keys, and a folded paper. "Read the rules now," he said. I opened it. There were 13 of them. I still remember every word I read. Route 9 driver rules. Number 1. Depart Bay C at exactly 11:30 p.m. Not earlier, not later. Number 2. Keep all interior lights on until the third stop. Number 3. If someone's waiting at stop 2 wearing red gloves, do not open the door. Number 4. Never acknowledge passengers who know your name unless you know them personally. Number 5. Count passengers after each stop. If the number changes between stops, do not check the mirrors. Number 6. At 12:17 a.m., you may hear knocking beneath the floor. Continue driving. Number 7. If a child boards alone carrying a paper ticket, punch it and let them sit wherever they choose. Number 8. If any passenger asks whether this is the last route tonight, answer no. Number 9. Do not take detours, regardless of road conditions. Number 10. At Hollow Creek Bridge, no one may exit the bus. Number 11. If you pass the church twice, close your eyes for 5 seconds and keep driving straight. Number 12. If the woman in the rear seat begins humming, everyone else is already gone. Number 13. Finish the route before 1:06 a.m. If you cannot, do not return to the depot. I looked up and asked if this was some kind of hazing thing. The old man just said, "You'll be fine if you follow directions." Then he walked away. No training, no explanation. Just me and a bus full of rules that sounded like they'd been written by someone having a psychotic break. I should have walked off the lot. Instead, I started the engine. The route sheet showed 9 stops and a rough loop around town, though parts of it went through roads I'd never seen before. I grew up here. I knew every neighborhood, every shortcut, every strip mall and gas station. But some of the street names on that page meant nothing to me. At exactly 11:30 p.m., I pulled out. The bus drove surprisingly smooth. The steering was heavy, but manageable. The cabin smelled like dust and old vinyl. Every light inside hummed softly overhead. Stop 1 was normal. A man in hospital scrubs got on, nodded, paid cash, and sat halfway back. He didn't say a word. I almost relaxed. Then I reached stop 2. There was one person waiting under the streetlight. Tall, thin, wearing a dark coat and bright red gloves. They didn't wave, didn't move. They just stood there facing the bus. I remembered Rule 3 and kept the doors shut. For a second, nothing happened. Then the person slowly raised one hand and knocked on the glass beside the front door. Not hard, just 3 polite taps. I stared straight ahead and drove off. In the side mirror, I saw them still standing there. Then I saw them sprinting after the bus. I nearly swerved. They moved impossibly fast, coat flapping behind them, red hands slapping against the windows as they ran alongside me. Then we hit the next intersection, and they were gone. By stop 3, I was sweating through my shirt. No one was waiting there, but Rule 1 said interior lights stay on until the 3rd stop, so I turned them off after pulling away. The cabin behind me fell into dim shadow. That's when I realized the man in hospital scrubs was no longer alone. 3 more people were seated silently in the back rows. I hadn't seen anyone board. I actually hit the brakes from shock. Rule 5 came back to me. If the number changes between stops, do not check the mirrors. I had already looked once, so I gripped the wheel and stared forward. No one on the bus spoke. I could hear breathing behind me, though. Several different rhythms. Too many, though. At 12:17 exactly, the knocking started. All from beneath the floor. Heavy fists pounding upward from the luggage compartment or the road itself. Boom, boom, boom. The whole bus vibrated. A woman somewhere behind me laughed quietly. I kept driving. Stop 4 was near an elementary school that had been closed for years. Chain link fence, boarded windows, playground removed. There was a child waiting alone, maybe 8 years old, maybe younger, wearing a yellow raincoat, holding a paper ticket with both hands. I wish I could tell you I ignored the rules and called the police, but the child looked normal, tired maybe, pale, standing patiently. I opened the door. They climbed aboard with a sound and handed me the ticket. It was damp and soft like it had been soaked. The printed date on it was October 14th, 1986. I punched it because my hands moved before my brain did. The child walked down the aisle. Every passenger shifted away from them. Even in the mirrorless dark, I could feel it. They sat in the very last row. Then all the breathing stopped. A few minutes later, someone behind me asked, "Is this the last route tonight?" It was a male voice, and they sounded close. Too close. Rule 8. I answered, "No." The voice whispered, right beside my ear, "Good." I nearly crashed. There was no one standing near me when I glanced to the side. I know I wasn't supposed to look, but instinct won. There was nothing there. But still, the seat cushion behind me sank as if someone had just sat down. Road construction blocked Maple Avenue near the next turn. Orange cones, barriers, flashing lights. The detour sign pointed left. Rule 9 said no detours regardless of road conditions. I slowed almost to a stop. A worker in reflective gear waved me through from the closed road. I hesitated, then drove straight through the barrier. The worker started screaming and pounding the side of the bus. But when I looked in the windshield, the construction site was gone. No cones, no crew, no torn up asphalt, just an empty street. In the rearview mirror, which I know I shouldn't have checked, the worker was standing in the middle of the road. No reflective vest now. Just a gray suit, watching us disappear. Hollow Creek Bridge came next. It was a long, narrow bridge over black water. No lights except mine. Halfway across, every stop request bell on the bus rang at once. Ding, 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 ding. Then passengers began standing. I could hear shoes scraping the floor. Hands on poles, bodies moving toward the door. Rule 10. No one may exit the bus. I kept both hands on the wheel and did not stop. Someone slammed against the front doors hard enough to crack the glass. Another pounded on the side windows. Then came the screaming. Not angry screaming, but panicked screaming. Like they were trying to get out before something else got in. When I reached the other side of the bridge, silence returned instantly. The bus felt lighter, much lighter. Then I passed St. Bartholomew's Church. I know that church. It was a stone building, cemetery beside it, a bell tower with no bell. 5 minutes later, I passed it again. Same cracked statue out front, same dead oak tree, same busted sign. Rule 11. Close your eyes for 5 seconds and keep driving straight. I want everyone hearing this to understand how insane that sounds when you're driving a moving bus. But by then, insane had become relative. I closed my eyes. 1 second, 2, 3. At 4, something wet touched the back of my neck. At 5, I opened them. The road ahead was different. No church, no town. Just a narrow lane through dense woods under a sky with no moon. The passengers were whispering in unison. I don't know how long I drove there. Time felt different. The dashboard clock flickered between 12:41 and 3:02, and then blank. Branches scraped the side of the bus like fingernails. Eventually, I saw another stop sign ahead. No road name. Just a bench in the trees. One person waiting there. It was a woman in a gray dress. She boarded slowly and sat in the rear seat. Then she began humming. Rule 12. If the woman in the rear seat begins humming, everyone else is already gone. I turned around. Every other seat was empty. No child, No hospital worker. No silent strangers. No one. Just the woman in the back, gently humming to herself. She raised one hand and pointed to the windshield. I turned forward. Someone was standing in the road. Red gloves. I slammed the brakes, and the figure didn't move. It stood dead center in the lane, face hidden in darkness. One gloved hand lifted like it wanted permission to board. Behind me, the humming got louder. Then dozens of voices joined it. Not singing, but breathing. I remembered Rule 13. Finish before 1:06 a.m. The clock on the dash read 1:04, so I hit the gas. The bus accelerated harder than it should have been able to. Engines screaming, wheels shaking. The red-gloved figure stayed still until the last second. Then it smiled. I know it smiled because teeth flashed white in the headlights. We hit it, or passed through it. I honestly don't know which. There was no impact, just a blast of freezing air through the cabin and every window frosting over at once. The humming stopped. The clock read 1:05. The woods ended abruptly, and I was back on the industrial road leading to the depot. I pulled into Bay C at 1:05 and 42 seconds. I turned the engines off and I opened it. Empty bus. The old man was already there. He stepped inside, looked around once, and nodded. "Good," he said. "You made schedule." I started yelling. I asked what the hell that route was, who those people were, what kind of sick joke they were running. He listened patiently. Then he said, "You'll want to be back tomorrow night, same time." I told him to go to hell, and he shrugged. "Then don't cash your bonus." He handed me an envelope. Inside was more money than I'd made in 2 months. I wish I could say I tore it up. I wish I could say morals won. But instead, I went home and I didn't sleep. At 10:40 p.m. the next night, I was back at Bay C. I drove Route 9 for 11 nights. Each night was worse. Some nights the passengers had all wet hair. Some nights every seat was occupied by people facing backward. Once, the child in the yellow coat sat in the seat behind me and whispered every turn before it happened. I never missed schedule. Then on night 12, I broke a rule. A man boarded at stop 6, and he knew my name. "Evening, Daniel," he said. Rule 4. Never acknowledge passengers who know your name unless you know them personally. But I recognized him. He was my father. He's been dead for 3 years. I said, "Dad?" The entire bus went dark. Not lights out, but dark. Like the inside had been filled with ink. Something leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "You knew him personally." I woke up in a hospital 2 days later after they found the bus crashed in a Hollow Creek bridge. No passengers, no company records, no Morrow Transit building. The depot lot is empty now, and it has been for years, according to everyone I ask. There was never a Bay C, no Route 9, no old man. But every month, on the 12th, an envelope appears in my mailbox with cash inside, and it's always the exact same amount. There's no return address. And sometimes, just after midnight, I hear air brakes hiss outside my apartment, then 3 polite taps on the glass, always from a hand wearing red gloves.